you have put a great emphasis on the fourth quarter and finishing, and that's obviously easier said than done. What is the key, to getting a team that hasn't won a lot kind of over that hump?
First thing is believing that you can win, right? And having that belief. And then as you practice, like this morning, today is Wednesday. So it's kind of that transition from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. And then how do we operate later in practice? As you're getting into the latter periods of practice, are you just trying to get through, or are you trying to increase your energy level? And so I was after him today pretty good about the intensity that we have to have as we go into the fourth quarter, because that's when games are won or lost. And when I look back at it, I didn't do a good job of having them ready to come out after the delay to finish the fourth quarter. And when you look at it, credit to JMU, but a lot of it was we just didn't make the plays when we needed to make the plays. And so the mindset is more just trying to hope that one other phase is going to carry us, where all three phases in that game had an opportunity. Defense had an opportunity to make a stop. Offense had an opportunity to put a drive together and either score points or flip the field. And then we had a special teams play that could have, put them in a really backed up situation and make it tougher. In all three phases, we didn't make the play. So the key is, as we practice, right, we have the right intensity later in the week to make sure that we're building as we go into the fourth quarter and not just trying to coast and hope that we win. And I told the guys, in my opinion, there's two ways that you win a game. Either you go win it, or the other team gives it to you. Right? That's how you win games. You either go win it, or you have it given to you. And that was an example of, again, not taking anything away from JMU, but we didn't go win it, and that's what we have to do. Just to answer that question.
Do you have an update? Did Tony practice today?
Yeah, Tony looked good in practice, and I feel a lot better about the day-to-day decision, coming up to game time. But he's back in full practice. Where last week he was limited a little bit. He's been able to do everything, make all the throws, go through the handoff progression. So I'm excited about his possibility for this weekend.
In terms of the energy for the team, it was such an emotional weekend, the way the game ended, all of that. How did they come back this week? And do you have some veterans who can kind of keep the energy up if it's not there?
Correct. Energy is key. It's the key, and that's the crazy thing about college football, man. The ebbs and flows, the changes in momentum, how quickly energy can change. Definitely got a few veterans that that I'm leaning on right now, and I thought the guys came back. And for us, it's a short week, right? So, one of the positives is that we didn't have a long time to sit and stew about what happened. We had to get right to the accountability. Put it to bed and then move on. So, Sunday, everybody was hurting. Like, I don't know about y'all, but man, when I went home, I didn't eat, couldn't do anything but just say what can I do to get better to help us get over the hump, and then showed up on Sunday. Everybody was still a little bit, down, but that's an opportunity for us to grow. Like, it doesn't matter if you win or you lose. When you show back up on Monday in our game week, you have to have the right mindset. You got to put the game in bed and start looking forward. And so, by the end of the meetings, and out on the practice field, I thought the energy picked up. Yesterday, we had a good Tuesday practice, and was proud of the guys for that, because again, you're on a short week. You're right back out. It's a 2-hour practice. You're full pads. You're getting after it, and I thought the guys had good energy. And then today, I thought the guys were very spirited as well. And so, seeing growth within the team, it's all about how you respond. And I think the guys are learning to respond quicker, and they're learning to respond the right way. And then we have to come back tomorrow and put everything together and have a really good mental practice, because you take the pads off on Thursday and kind of dress rehearsal polish, but you still got to be mentally in tune. And then we got to win the battle between the time we finish our Thursday practice and the time we kick off up in College Park. So the guys that I'm leaning on from an energy standpoint is Cam Butler. Man, he brings it every single day. Ahern's been really good this year with having great energy coming out to practice. Malik Washington has had good energy. The quarterbacks, both Tony and Ant, bring good energy. So I got some guys that I'm leaning on. Mike Hollins has been awesome. Like every day that he's out there, like he's got great energy and he's got great positive body language. So it's just some of the younger guys and then some of the other guys that we just got to pull through the knothole and get them to turn it loose to help us.
Some of the guys that didn't play last week, like Josh Ahern, Lex Long, Antonio Claire, what kind of their status going?
Yeah, so Sackett is back, Ahern's back, Lex is back. Antonio, unfortunately, still day to day. That the ligament in the ankle is just taking its time. He's pushing hard. I know Kelly and the medical staff are working daily, but it's just a day to day thing with Clary. I think those were the main guys. I feel like, going into this game is probably the most healthy that we've been, all year, having everybody back from last week, with the exception of Clary being a day-to-day game time decision.
When you look at Maryland and you see their QB, I'm not going to try to attempt to say his name, but what do you see from him?
And I apologize, Tua. I'm just calling him Tua, right? Because I don't know how to do it properly, and I don't want to mess it up. But he's a gamer. Yeah, he's a competitor. He's a sneaky good runner, right? He likes to stay in the pocket and keep his eyes downfield. But when he pulls it down, he can go and hurt you with his legs. He's very comfortable in their system. You can see that he's comfortable in their system. He knows the progressions. He can make all the throws. So you can see that this guy is a seasoned quarterback, and we got to do a good job. Like we didn't put much pressure on Jordan last week, and that was something that I really challenged the defensive line. We got to put more pressure on the quarterback from all facets of our pass rush. This guy. He can beat you in the pocket, and what he can also do is those kind of, off-schedule plays when he's improvising. He does a really good job of that.
Dave Herard has played more in the first 2 weeks than his whole career, really. Yeah. What has allowed him to get on the field? I know injuries maybe a little bit, but what have you seen from him that's allowed him to get on the field?
Yeah, so Dave is playing faster now. I think he's the processing of the game, it has slowed down to him, so now he can just go. Where in the past I think he was thinking a little bit too much, which made him a step slow. Not from a speed standpoint, but just from a timing standpoint. So now he has a much better understanding of what we're doing. Obviously, with the situation with Clary being down, he has to, and then Cohen moving out to corner has created opportunity, and he just sees the moment. He's taking advantage of his opportunities and doing a good job.
You have a number of sixth-year seniors in the program, and a handful of them have been at UVA for all 6 years. Besides good play, what do you expect from Cohen and Paris and that group?
Yeah, so shout out to those guys because that you mentioned that have been here the whole time, that have been through the transition, which wasn't easy. I remember my senior year, I was asked to come back to play. I'd already graduated, and I was coming back to play for my receiver coach, and then I make that decision, and then he gets an opportunity to be a coordinator, and he leaves. And so I went through that transition there, and it's not easy because there's a lot of unknown. So they've muscled through that, and then obviously everything that happened last year. So what I expect out of those guys is just to display daily the maturity, the growth, the experience that they have here, because they got a lot of experience, not just football-wise. They got a lot of life experience, and they can be great role models and examples for the younger guys that are coming in that don't quite understand the challenges and the struggles that the program has been through, over the last a couple years with the transition, and then also with the tragedy.
I know everybody expected the offensive line to struggle a little bit this year because of the inexperience, and they were banged up in training camp. What have you seen there? is this something that's just going to have to be a work in progress, or do you have hopes that these guys are going to eventually put it together?
I do have hope that these guys are going to put it together, and because I've seen it at times, you know, and what I told the guys during the game, and I continue to tell them is man, when you five guys are on the same page, man, it's poetry in motion. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and so I've seen what it can become. So I am very, very hopeful. Big picture wise, overall with the offensive line, in recruiting, that's a position that you can't miss, right? That's the one position like that quarterback, you know, those are positions you can't miss. Because one, there's nowhere for the offensive line to go. Like, you don't typically, when you're recruiting a D lineman, you say, well, he's athletic enough. If he's not quite a D lineman, then he can be an offensive lineman. But there's nowhere for the offensive lineman to go. If he can't play offensive line, it's like there's nowhere for you to go with him. So you got to be right, and you got to develop too. It's probably the most developmental position in football is the offensive line because of the technical piece of it, because of the understanding, and then just how much changes, you know, on those guys. And 4 to 6 inches that change right before the snap affect 5 guys, where it's not always the case at other positions. So I'm hopeful that the guys that we have can put it together. You know, Jimmy, you know, coming back off an injury gives us a little bit of depth. We gotta get better. You know, snapping the ball. We got to be more consistent there. I thought Saturday was better than the previous Saturday, but still not the consistency that we need. So we gotta make progress there. And the biggest thing is communication with those guys. It's got to be consistent, and that's where experience comes into play, because you're used to the guys sitting next to you, used to the calls. You know how to make the calls. You know when to make the calls, and a lot of that is, you know, on-the-job training as well. So I'm hopeful, but big picture, you know, it's a rebuild on the offensive line, and it's going to take a little bit of time because you got to recruit the right guys, you got to develop those guys, you got to have consistency, you know, in the developmental process with those guys. Because if you change coaches, it's a different, you know, set of terminology with that coach, a different set of fundamentals that you have to go through, and you want to be as consistent as possible with those guys. So I'm hopeful, but I also understand that we got work to do. Not going to make an excuse. We're going to coach these guys that we got. We're going to coach them hard, and then in the recruiting process, you know, we're going to try and address the needs that we need going forward.
Sort of this may kind of relate to what Hootie just asked, but the tight end position, you've not gotten a ton in the pass game out of them,
That's right.
probably in part because you're asking them to stay in, I know, at times and blocking in the run game. How would you evaluate what you're getting from those guys versus maybe what you hope to get?
I think that each game is going to dictate kind of their production, depending upon what we ask them to do. And obviously, we feel good with Mish and Sackett, but we didn't have Sackett last week. You know, so now Josh is trying to grow up on the job, and Josh has done a really good job of developing in the run game for us. Carson is a guy that we feel like can be a matchup, but we just got to get him, you know, to that point to where he can function, you know, in both aspects, because it's very hard at that position to substitute a guy based off a run pass. You have heavy tendencies. So just overall, you know, I think the guys have done what we ask them to do. I do believe that we can have more production, but as we improve on the offensive line, we'll be able to allow those guys to do more in the passing game, and then each game plan is going to dictate like their level of production. So pleased with where they are, asking them to do a lot, hopeful that we can get to a point to where we can incorporate them in more aspects of what we're doing offensively than just the run blocking and the pass protection.
And this will also tie back to the offensive line, but a lot of Calandria's best throws were what we'd call broken plays, kind of, you know, keeping his head up.
Yep.
Right. Is that something as a coach that you would game plan for? Like, okay, the line's struggling, we're going to need those plays, or is that not the way you look at it?
I mean, to say that we're going to game plan Calandria, rolling to the right, throwing back to his left to Kobe wide open, I wish we could. Like, if we knew exactly when that play was going to come, but a lot of that is natural, or the one where he's scrambling around and then he finds Paris. Like, I don't know if you can game plan those things. I think it gives you some confidence that he'll be able to make you right, you know. But we also got to develop from the standpoint of when it's 5-man protection and it's quick game and you got double-edged pressure and you're hot, you can't go away from the pressure and then think you go full progression with it, right? So those are the areas where we're challenging, Ant to grow, and he will. And again, that's game experience that's going to help him with that. But it's hard to game plan those off-schedule plays. I think Andy Reid would probably say the same thing with Mahomes. Like, it's hard, but you know that you're going to get them. So I think you just let those happen. And then you try to focus on, cleaning up the protection so that he can sit in the pocket, because he was pretty effective from the pocket too when we were able to protect him. He stood in there and made some throws in different situations. But it's nice to know that when things break down, he can be a little bit of an eraser for you. Yeah, so you work scramble drill. So anytime, you have a broken play and the quarterback breaks the pocket and it's not a designed sprint out or move the pocket type situation, you coach the guys to be able to know that, hey, I stay in phase. If I'm on the backside, I know I'm on a cross, or if I'm on the front side, I'm flat to the sideline until I get close and then I turn up. So you coach all of those things. But the plays that he made, it's hard to coach finding Paris. I think that's just the gamesmanship and the feel for the game that he has, and I think that is consistent with the things that I've said about him. Like we know when the lights come on, there's a little bit different deal, and I think some of it is too is like those guys not necessarily practice that, but they practice the arm angles to make those throws. That's more of the quarterback development that you're seeing because of the Patrick Mahomes and the guys at the highest level that have to. They have to, because in the league it's hard to block the guys that you're going against. I don't care how good your offensive line is. We got to get better and protect him, but you can't really coach that, in my opinion. You just try to coach if he does break the pocket, man, be friendly. That's the word that you say. Stay friendly with your quarterback, and depending upon where you are on the field, you're going to have a different responsibility to stay friendly with the quarterback.
Yeah, sticking on Calandria there, obviously ACC Rookie of the Week. What kind of confidence did he instill in you this weekend if Tony's not ready, and then just kind of for the future of the program?
Yeah, so I think the confidence has already been there, and obviously I know I have to be mindful of how I say things when I'm talking to everybody, but I've expressed that we feel really confident that this kid has a chance to be very, very good in the future, and he showed that the moment wasn't too big for him. Right, so that gives you confidence. It also showed that, he's grasping, what we're asking him to do for the most part, and then areas where we got to improve. But I've said he's got the moxie, he's got that it factor. He plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and so those are the things that I had confidence in prior to, because I had seen it in some of the scrimmages when we went over to Scott Stadium. Spring game, you kind of saw, him when the lights came on. He was able to perform, and just proud of him, happy for him, and really it puts pressure on the young guys around him to step up, because you might be the next man up, and he was ready when his number was called. Now this week, obviously has to show the consistency to be able to take one game plan, flush it, right, and learn a new game plan within a week, and so that'll be a challenge for him. As he goes forward, whereas on the flip side, Tony's had that experience, because he's played a lot of college football so far.
Does it put pressure on Tony? I mean, you said before, you're not going to lose your position over injury or anything, but does it kind of help maybe once he's back healthy, kind of push him in the way that he did early in camp?
Right. Well, as I said, the competition, was daily in camp. So I think he already knows that the competition level is there, and he appreciates it. And that's what I value the most, is those two have a really good relationship, and it's a healthy competition, and they make each other better. And so, you watch body language, and you try to see what a guy's thinking by the way that he moves, the way that he talks, and Tony's body language has been awesome. On the sideline, I don't think when I was paying attention, I don't think I saw anybody more excited than Tony for Ant to go out there and play. So.
This is the first game between these programs in 10 years. For nearly 6 decades, they played every year. What is your history with Maryland, and is this a series you would like to see, renewed, if not every year, at least fairly regularly?
Playing in the ACC, in my college career, I played against Maryland, and man, they were always tough, always hard nosed. And then at my previous institution, had experience playing Maryland, and then I remember that game. They jumped out to a big lead, and I think it was like an 18-point comeback up there in College Park. And so, ton of respect for the program. They've had a ton of really, really good players come out of there. Watching them on film, they're coached very well. They're very deep on defense. They challenge you with their defensive structure overall, and they got depth, and they got some really good depth on the defensive line that they can roll guys and stay fresh and not have a drop off. And then we talked about the quarterback and what he can do offensively. So, just big picture. I'm about the pageantry and the rivalries in college football. I think that just adds to just how special this game is. So I'm for any natural rivalries that you can have. I'm all about playing those games.
Along those lines, does having Chris Slade, Jerome Cox on the staff, guys who played on both sides of the rivalry, help at all in terms of getting the players to understand it?
I think that it could be. I really haven't had much jawing back and forth. Like, there's not a whole lot you can say to Chris Slade. Like, I mean, what do you say to Chris Slade? There's like if you're Carone, what do you say to Chris Slade? I don't know if there's much you can say, but I know both of them will be excited. I think this week in particular, we have a little bit more some other things that we can use for motivation, and the biggest thing is we got to get better. We got to improve in a lot of areas. We have not tasted victory this season. So there's a lot of motivation for us as a football team, and and the hard thing is as a head coach, like everybody avoids you, saying that's one of the hard parts about the job, right? Like when they're having fun, they don't want to do it around the head coach, right? So they don't like to joke too much when I come in the room. Everybody gets quiet, but I could use that. I know Chris had 15 tackles. In the last game he played. Is that what you tell me? Yeah. 15 tackles against Maryland in the game. So if I need any more motivation, then I'll go to those two guys. But we got plenty right now as a football team going in this game.
Run defense-wise, I feel you guys probably feel like you're giving up a little too much. Maryland's got a good run game. How do you kind of look at that going into this week?
That's right. And so, the most disappointing thing coming out of the game was going into it. Our keys to victory for the previous week offensively was to run the ball. Like, that was our key to victory, was to run the ball. And then our number one key to victory on the defensive side was to stop the run. Right? And I felt like defensively the run fits were better, but we're still just not getting guys on the ground on first contact. We're still having way too many missed tackles, and then the last two drives we weren't very good against the run. So definitely that's where it starts. I think you win football games, up front by being able to establish the run and being able to stop the run. All right, and so we got some work to do with our guys, and it's not just the defensive line. Right, it's all three levels when you're talking about stopping the run, because everybody's got a gap. And then guys got to fit, and then guys on the back end, once they diagnose through their keys that it's run, they got to fit. They got to fit in the right gap. They got to fit with the right spacing. And then when they arrive, if the ball is spilled back to them, they got to get it on the ground. And that's where we got to improve. And then on the flip side, to run the ball, it's 5 guys, games of inches. It's a game of inches. Everybody being on the same page.
With Sue going down, you're relying now on freshman Jason Hammond and maybe even a little bit of Anthony Britton. So what have you seen from those guys? Obviously freshmen, the pace of the game is going to hit you, but what have you seen from their development? Yeah,
the boys got to grow up. They got to grow up fast. Trial by fire. But one, I've just seen an eagerness to want to do it. I thought in camp, Hammond showed some really, really good quickness, really good lateral movement. And Britton's just a big, strong guy. Still a lot of development to do at the position, but he's a big, strong guy. So now the key is, when are you reading a base block? Are they reaching you, right? Are they working away from you? Okay, and can you process the call that if it works away from me, then I got to lean back in this situation, or if I get a certain call, then I'm getting vertical. Those are the things that have to improve there. And then with Britton, biggest thing is just fundamentally getting his pads down. So a lot of promise. I think the future is very bright for those guys. It's just a matter of how quickly can we gain experience for them to be able to play at a high enough level with consistency to give us the depth that we need from a rotation standpoint.
Chico was back in the lineup on Saturday. How would you rate where he is physically, as compared to pre-injury, and then how does that change what you guys can do up front with the defensive line?
Right, I think it's tough with 22 snaps to really compare to where he was pre-injury, because he's got to get back in shape and all those things. But I was pleased with the snaps that he played this week. He's been full go. He hasn't been limited in any way. And not only does he have the knee, he's still working through the shoulder, getting back there, being able to use his right arm. So I think we need a larger sample size to kind of compare to where he was last year. But I'm just excited that he's back out there. One, because of his play, and then two, because of the leadership that he gives us up front.